Okay. Just going to check something. Okay. All right. Doon, 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 doon. By 8:08, I'm going to turn the camera and start this. Let me ask Wes again. Doon, doon. Oh, yeah, that's my sound. I swear to God. Eamon said it's not working on his side.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm watching you live.
You're watching me? Okay, well, I buy it. I buy it then. You're watching me too, Ellie? Okay. Well, I'm going to give him 5 more minutes and then I'm going to start. So
sounds good.
All right.
Perfect.
I'm going to say Wes saw me. Doon, 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 doon. Riveting. It's riveting television. This is my coffee, my morning coffee. Because it's early here. It's 8:06. So hopefully you guys have been hanging on since 8:06 a.m. Oh, Claynos is seeing me. Larry sees me. So I feel like there's a lot of people. All right, well, I don't want to interrupt Clay's thing there. I was going to FaceTime Clay, but I'm going to wait. He's got me. So at 8:10 or at 8:08, I'm going to turn the camera. And we're going to start to talk about this movie, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, Ultimate Edition, especially, I don't know, Ultimate Edition, I think it's called. I have my menu from my iTunes menu up, so I'm going to turn the camera and scroll through my movies and find Batman v Superman. I have all my supplies here. This is not a short movie. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but let me check. One last check. I gotta hang on. Hanging on. Ding, 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 ding. I brought my books down. These are my storyboard books, so we can refer to them occasionally. I'll show you some drawings. There's a lot of them. I mean, well, for this movie, there's only 4, but they're big books. You can see there. Yeah. So. My thing's timing out. It's 8:08. In New York. Okay. I'm in now. A lot of people are in, so seems to be working. That's not super reassuring, but I think I'm going to take it. All right, so it seems to be working. Let's try this thing. So this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn my camera now to the screen, and then we'll get the movie up, and I'll pause on the frame. I'm going to turn the lights down so you guys can see the frame really well. Now I'm going to take a few minutes to make sure everyone gets the frame synced up. I'm actually going to check with some people to make sure they have the frame because I want to get the timing squared away. So let's turn the camera. So let's turn the camera to the screen. Ding, 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 ding. So this is that's the page. Let's scroll down and find a lot of Barbie movies I see. Yeah, it's my secret passion. Kids also use this. Oh, there it is. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. 28% fresh. That is just rude. I'm going to play it now, but then I'm going to pause it, so don't freak out. Oh, whoops. Yeah. I want a better frame, but I feel like that's pretty good. I'm going to turn the lights down now. Okay, I'm turning the lights down so you can see the frame. Movie level. Let's see how that looks. Movie level, here it comes. Boom. Take a look. Pretty good. All right, so let me ask, I'm going to just ask Larry if he can see that frame. I'm calling him right now, so stand by. Hey Larry, can you see that frame?
Yeah. Well, I can now because I've seen you.
Oh yeah, but you saw it pretty good?
Oh, can I go to the other app while you're still online?
I don't know, can you do two apps at the same time? Jesus.
It's looking. It's called multitasking.
See, look, I can look my shadow. Since I'm in the theater, I can show. See the leaf? This is my shadow. The leaf is right covering the N.
Well, check this out.
So you can get pretty close if you can get it right to that.
That's the frame I've had up like for 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's it. That's my frame.
No, I had my frame before you did.
No way! Okay, good. So that's serendipitous. So hopefully,
You need something.
hopefully everybody landed on the N leaf covering the N frame. Feel good about it?
Makes sense.
All right, I'm gonna try Wes and see if he's on the same frame.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you later. I'm here, guys, so don't freak out. That's the right frame. Let me just ask Wes if he's on it too. If I can get a couple people's consensus, I will begin the process. What do you think? Can you see it?
It looks great.
You got it? Ellie, can you see it?
I saw it too. I'm gonna watch the whole thing.
Okay, it's a long movie. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn it back. I'm going to turn the camera back around. Let's bring the lights up. I need my remote control, which I've lost. Here it is. All up. And now I will bring the camera back around. Doom, doom, doom. Okay, so we're going to do ready, set, go, and we will begin this process. So I will push play. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, play. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Everybody get your finger on the button. If you pushed it by accident, I'm going to give you a second to get your rewind and get your leaf back over the W, or the N, over the N of Warner Brothers on the first shield. You guys know how to do it? Get your W back. I didn't mean to false start anybody. But the next time I do it, it's going to be for real. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, go. And so you'll see, I'm going to put my finger on the button. That way you'll know. All right, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. I think it's playing. All right, so these opening frames, I'm going to turn my volume down a little bit. I really wanted to have these like leaves to sort of signal fall, and the fall of. Of course, the movie begins with a funeral and ends with a funeral. It's a very, it's a cyclical film. It was all designed to sort of, begin and end in a circle to give this impression that, at first that it's hopeless, but then as we learn and as we grow through the process of discovering our humanity, that a funeral becomes something else. This death of Superman concept, Superman's parents, was a thing I'd always wanted to. I really always been fascinated with the death of the Waynes, so wanted to do it kind of my way. Jeffrey Dean was kind enough to lend his incredible talents to this little scene, and Lauren as well. So it was kind of them to do this for me. I appreciate it. And then of course the amazing Damon Caro playing Joe Chill in this sequence was kind of him to also participate. Damon and I have worked together on every movie since Dawn of the Dead. I've known him for a super long time, and I really thought it was perfect for him to play this part. Yeah, he has a cameo actually in Watchmen where he does this kind of similar scene where he's mugging someone in an alley. So he was really good at it. He knew how to do it. You can see Michael Wilkinson, of course, is a longtime collaborator. Awesome, good shot at Damon there. The pearls, of course, is look, the pearls they're I don't know, they become like this staple of the. Look, I have, even like in my little doodles, you can see there's pearls everywhere. Man, look at this. That shot right there. So, good fun. Sorry, there's a lot of people have, I have these talked about the way I make a movie, and I tend to draw the script, take the script and then draw frame by frame, each shot in the movie. You discover stuff as you go, but it's always, this is always for me one of the most important processes is drawing the shots. So that that's always been for me like the easiest way to sort of visualize the movie before you shoot it. I'm not really a big fan of the shot list. It becomes abstract to me. Like, and I have always very specific needs when we're shooting, as far as the details of the frame and like what you see and how the frame is manipulated. And so for me, drawing it is always much better. And I always, when we're working, and Chris Terrio is a genius and wrote an amazing script, but in the end, once we get to this point, I'm always like, look at the storyboards first before you look at the script. Storyboards go script, storyboard, shooting. So it's like you always have to. The last thing you look at should be the storyboard before we film, not the script, unless it's the words, and then the words we could talk about. But that's a different process. But I'm just talking about making sort of visualizing thing. And Larry Fong, who I was just, chatting with on the interwebs, he's been an amazing collaborator with me since we were in film school together. We were, we made Super 8 films together, for our basics of film class. That's where we started as a collaboration. So it was, he and I work really well together, and he's always like, he understands also like my whole, like, where are the drawings? He's always like, where are the drawings? I need to know what we're shooting. So it's a clear thing. There was Ben jumping out of the helicopter a little early. He got in trouble for that. The safety guy was like, don't jump out of the helicopter until it's landed. It's not cool to, and he was like, look, I got to get, save Metropolis. I got to get to my people at Wayne Industries there. So it was, by the way, we use it in the movie. I think it was, Larry always said, we were talking about, like, I use take one quite a bit, because we do a lot of pretty hardcore sort of choreography and action. And a lot of times take one is the one. And then we'll shoot another 8 takes and be like, let's look at one again. And then like, oh, one was good. And so everyone gets tortured, but we still get the shot. And so if you shoot the rehearsal, that's Larry's rehearsal cat. If you're familiar with rehearsal cat, he says that if you shoot the rehearsal, it's not a rehearsal, which is 100% true. I remember when we shot this, actually, there was a little bit where you see this car, we forgot to take that ramp. You can see that little ramp right there that we used to get the car down, that little embankment to get there. This was downtown Detroit, and it was the people of Detroit were super kind, and I had a great shooting experience there. It was an incredible place to shoot, and just it's a great city and great group of people up there. There was a sequence when Ben was driving where he did knock the camera off the side of the car, because we had on a hostess tray, and we had to weave through all these parked cars, which was cool. If you don't break a camera while you're shooting, you're not really probably doing it right. You got to destroy some photography equipment in order for it to be a really good movie. That was Chris Maloney crashing into the world engine from another movie that I made called Man of Steel. I wonder if anyone's ever done a 5-hour cut, which would basically just be editing these two parts of the movie really together carefully. I've never seen that. I'm sure it exists online somewhere, where you really match up all these moments so that they're happening simultaneously. I don't know if anyone's done that. I'd have to look, but it feels like a cool thing to do, because it all should match up pretty well, because they're right below. They're fighting right below. If you watch that shot, they punch out. So it could be kind of cool. Anyway, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure hopefully someone's editing it right now. This sequence, of course, was, where we were trying to do some, show the sort of post 9/11, what is the world in that world, at this kind of imagery, and what it suggests to, the collective sort of psychic trauma that occurred from some sort of devastating event in an attempt to kind of superimpose onto Bruce Wayne's psyche this vision of destruction that we could connect with because we've lived through this other horror. And so even if we understand now from the outer perspective that Superman is saving the world from being essentially terraformed into another planet, so that the greater good is being served. You know, it's like a Ozymandias type scenario where you kill, a big sacrifice is made to save the world, And I would say that, and not even intentionally in this case, it was just like, Zod is a powerful dude. You can't, to suggest that you could defeat him without him nearly winning is not really realistic or at all the kind of consequence I wanted, from my superhero movies. I don't like this idea that like there's no consequence, that these characters get to knock around in our world and they don't create and solve giant problems, because that's the mythology that, if you look at even back to if you look at Greek mythology and how gods interact with us in the past, that they've always exacted a terrible cost on us as a people. So 18 months later, that would be the cut. If you were doing the extended version, you would go from Welcome to the Planet to 18 months later. Then here we are, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. We shot this in Bora Bora, so it was a bit of a boondoggle. We went down there and hung out for, I guess it was like a week, and shot this, and it was good fun. And it's always fun to shoot, underwater. And this kid was amazing. He was like, I think I remember them saying he's like one of the youngest guys to surf Chopu in Tahiti. And I don't know if you know, it's a massive break in Tahiti, a beautiful break, like incredible reef break, big thick wave breaks there. And it's and this kid was 15 and he had surfed it. And I was like, geez, it's just amazing. This guy got to come down with us. You'll see later, he plays we see him at the dock when the kryptonite's being offloaded from the ship, and he from the Portuguese, and he was just pointing at it, and I was like, oh, you could be the guy who discovers it. So then, even though he's just like a stuntman who was there for the day, we ended up taking him to Bora Bora at the end of the shoot, and he was like, this is awesome. There's Michael Cassidy, who plays Jimmy Olsen, and I just worked with him again. He's in Army. He has a brief role in Army of the Dead. Not brief, but slightly brief, but cool. He does an amazing job. Again, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, just come out for a couple days, and he ended up having to stay for like a month. So I appreciate it when actors roll with the punches. This sequence we shot also in New Mexico at this there was this facility, and I think it was an old, it was a mining town of some kind. I forget what the tungsten mine or something like that. I forget exactly, but they had built a mining town around it, and then the mine went bankrupt, and so then the CIA and other law enforcement communities were using it for training. And then and then I guess the U.S. military had built a sort of Afghanistan-style village there, and then we took that village and turned it into Africa. So that was how we. And there was a sequence in the script where they took the electronics away from them, but they allowed him to keep his analog camera. Jimmy keeps the analog camera. That's why he has that. That's why he has the analog camera. And that was his trick to keep the tracking device that no one would suspect an old range-finding camera of having the tracking device, because it's such a simple piece of electronic. It's not even electronic at all, it's just a device. Also, this sequence originally, I had planned a much on Superman's entrance, I had planned a much, bigger action scene. But in the end, I felt like it was better to just to go with a simpler entrance for Superman, because I really like the parallels of his entrances, here and with Lex later, this kind of like lightning bolt entrance, which would be very otherworldly and like how a god would enter. But you'll see Callum was in Rise of an Empire, and he did a really great job, and so I thought I'd put him in this movie, and he's really cool in this movie. He's of course a great bad guy, and we see him throughout the film, and gave him those little sort of Russian mafia or gangster tattoos on his hands, and he's got a couple more, but you see the ones on his back of his hands. I just like the idea that Jimmy was a spook for the CIA. I always felt like Jimmy, never was that capable in the, and to see him being able to like speak foreign language. People always ask me if he's dead in this scene. Like, do we see him again? Does he come back to life? I don't think so. It implies a bigger universe, or it implies these dominoes are falling, as we go forward. It was a 5-movie arc, and as the dominoes fall as you go, you're ended up with the consequence, and so the world is rebuilt again each time the movies continue. So, if this was a TV show, I would say for sure it would bring Jimmy back. We'd have to figure out a way, or I would have just constructed it in a different way. But in the case of, this kind of limited view of the world, sorry, I started watching the movie. I think this limited view of the world, you take your pieces and you move them. It's like a chess game. You move them ahead as you need them, and the ones that die off for a reason. And they, hopefully as they die off, they give us something. They teach us something as they go, and that's kind of what their role is, in the mythology that is sort of the superhero, pantheon. You want to use the sort of mythological strength of each character to like teach us about who they are, the why of their existence in the comic books to begin with, and that's up to like, of course that will change in time as people, as different directors or different comic book artists, continue the legacy of the work. They can change and I'm sure you could make a Jimmy Olsen TV show if you felt like it, or a Jimmy Olsen movie, one-off origin film of Jimmy Olsen. But like for me, this is the purpose he served, and that's fine. I like this. This is the entrance of Superman, and of course he has that look because this is exactly what Lex wanted. The creation, bringing Superman to this politically volatile scenario to lure him into a messy political world, which also underlines the kind of why, Superman with his clean morality having to deal with these gray areas is kind of what this whole thing is about. And then I really like the idea of these, when our guys are like, special ops team have to like, sort of, they get to see what it is that was staged kind of perfectly for like the aftermath of like what it would look like, you know, if Superman had like, you know, been a wrathful god, you know. So they kind of staged this world for our guys, you know. Even though Lois knows the truth, I think that the cloud, the fog of war, you know, where we're like so affected by this sort of imagery of a conflict, you know, we end up sort of when we get the story as we do here at the committee meeting, we understand how it translates back to us at home, you know, and that it would be really easy to sort of create imagery that could bring the sort of morality of Superman, not even the morality of Superman, but his actions into question. And I think that Holly does a great job in sort of being this voice of reason, sort of this really clear, non-judgmental, but also what I would say thoughtful and very clear in her. It's like how the story goes through Holly and back to the world is a really sort of modern way of looking at how Superman's morality would be perceived by us. This is one of this football sequence. There's Anton Clarkson plays the quarterback, and this Eli's quarterback coach, this kid right here, and it was one of the first things we shot, Metropolis. And I thought this football metaphor, how you would sort of show the way two cities kind of interact using their two football teams as a metaphor, I think that's kind of a fun way to start it. And of course we get to see GC later. That's Cyborg's alma mater, if you will, or the team he played for before his injury. This was an old house in Detroit that we found for this sequence. It was it was kind of a. Who's that?
Hi.
Oh, look, Debbie's here. Debbie just showed up. You might have to come back there, or you can come. You want to sneak in?
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going really good. We're just at this sequence where I think Christine's down in there somewhere. There she is, right over there. This is the sequence we shot again. This is like, I wanted to sort of establish that the bad guys are really bad. Like it's not just, literally sex trafficking these women, putting them in a cage in a basement would be something that, hard to defend, the morality of a guy who's like caged these women. And you can imagine Batman would be not into that. And again, this whole concept of him branding criminals, the idea was that he had kind of lost his own moral compass and that he had kind of become, what he beheld. And I think that idea, the whole idea of this movie is that to create this arc where Superman, through his hatred of Superman, but then his realization and sort of when he confronts Superman's humanity, that he finds himself again. That's kind of what the thesis of the thing is that we're all humans and that we all, when we connect on a level that we both have the same, our mothers have the same name. That is like this really sort of fundamental, we both have a mother. And so we're both human. Even though Superman's from another planet, his connection to humanity is so clean that Batman's able to like re-energize himself. But this was a fun sequence to shoot. That's all CG. We shot it just like the roof, pan across, and then DJ, who is my longtime collaborator, visual effects supervisor, was able to create this amazing little like run across. But I think I always intended that was like a cool. Let me just see what that looks like in the drawings.
Do you remember this location? Like, was all run down, and then by the end of the shoot, it was like being renovated.
Oh yeah, they
too.
completely fixed it up so that if you were to go there today, it looks like it's a good
Beautiful
looking.
Victorian,
Yeah, it's a good looking building now. These are all those shots. There he is. Yeah, like here's the here's the shots of Batman. There he is up in the corner. And then he goes across the roof. So yeah, it's very much my hope for it was realized very, very well by the guys be able to create this sort of visual effects. And then there's the branding. But we rebuilt we rebuilt it later, but we built this apartment for Lois. Patrick did a really good job. I always thought it was like a really kind of fun apartment, although it's probably too nice for a reporter. You know, I don't think reporters make that much money, but it's a pretty sweet apartment that she's got there. And then there's Clark, and she's hiding the bullet, though he probably could see it through the wall. That's what everyone says. Although I don't know if he's looking. I mean, is he really trying to look through the wall?
He's just trying to bring his lady flowers, I think.
I really wanted to like establish right away this kind of, in a way, a kind of a normal life. What's that?
Nothing. I see my head.
It's okay.
They can't see me.
Yeah, they can. It's kind of normal life, you know, for these two. In a way, this kind of domestic kind of intimacy, you know, like the fact that Lois, you know, is just taking a bath is the kind of thing that's like completely only couples, you know, where they're with each other in this intimate way that's not and doesn't establish any kind of like, you know, formality to their relationships other than how they deal with each other. And I really wanted that to be like front and center, because I just felt like they're just a normal couple, you know, other than the fact that they have to deal with these kind of world issues. You know, I wanted them on their personal level to feel very connected and very kind of normal, you know. And this is stuff that we do, Debbie and I, all the time. Like, you know, I'll bring her flowers in a bathtub. Yeah,
oh, that's so nice.
That's very common, super common. And then, you know, I mean, the problem is, you know, Henry's not quite as ripped as I am, but it's fine. Yeah, and then there's a really cool shot of the glasses. Yeah, I really like this glasses shot. I think I drew that shot exactly like that. And I like that little detail, you know, that he doesn't have to wear a disguise around Lois. That was kind of the, you know, he has a pretty meager disguise, by the way, glasses. I always love that convention of Clark Kent. He puts on his glasses and like, oh my God, who's that? You know, it's really great. This is our first look at the Bat Cave. Patrick did an amazing job building and designing this. We built it full scale in Detroit in a giant warehouse, in a giant soundstage. At the stages where we shot. So it was this beautifully constructed and massive set that was completely worked. You know, you could go down the stairs, and Batmobile was parked down there, and there was an armory over behind us that way. And that's where the Robin costume is, to constantly always remind him of the death of Robin. And
it was quite a feat in engineering too, because it cantilevered.
Yeah,
it really did cantilever out.
It was tricky because like it really, if you're standing on the sort of the driveway, you could see underneath the whole superstructure, and then the cliff went up and underneath it. So it was an amazing thing to see. And if you just walked in there, it just looked like the Batcave. It looked like you were in like some sort of Disneyland ride. you can imagine going down. I remember we shot that early too. That picture on the cover there, Clay shot that, and we drew a number. We wrote a number of newspaper articles. Doug and Lexi did an amazing job just creating this massive amount of reality to the world. I mean, even when Bruce, there's like a newspaper article about Jack, who dies when the building crashes in Metropolis, and there's an article about them going to I think it's like a corporate picnic with Bruce's dad when he ran Wayne Enterprises, and that Jack was like a junior executive at the time. He was like a young executive that knew Bruce's father, and that's why Bruce kept him around, and that he had met Bruce at a picnic or something. So it was like that deep of a dive in the sort of back, a thing you would never see, but that they worked on. There's Jesse. I really love what he's done here. We went with that red hair based on the early DC comics, where you see Lex with red hair. But then we try to evolve him over the course of this. Lex is a very interesting sort of study here, in my opinion. He, we wanted him to be like less a sort of a corporate brute and more of a sort of intellectual sort of in this sort of modern study of what a supervillain might look like and how he might use his resources and his the fact that he was probably bullied by his father and people when he was growing up, and that his word games, they give him this sort of intellectual superiority because he's not 100% interested in you following him all the time, but he likes to give that air that he is. It makes like he's the kind of guy that if you take it apart, it makes complete sense, but you got to stay with him on an intellectual level. And if you can't, he doesn't care. In his opinion, you've kind of like, he's assessed your ability to reason. And if you're not up to it, then he's like moved on. And he loves that ability to like flex his power based on his brain. And you have this, we wanted him to have that blue ball, as this kind of symbolic, like the world's in his hand kind of, or see a little blue planet. He does it right there. And that's great. And he and Holly actually worked really well together because they were, they're very intense in their sort of rendering of these characters. And I really like that when they went at it with each other because it was always really real and visceral. And that was a cool big the LexCorp sign we built. That was for real. We had it. This big neon sign. I think we had to send it off someplace to have built. And then that sign was supposed to represent like the old LexCorp, and that, when they modernized, they kept the sign before they knocked everything else down. And he put it in the lobby as some sort of relic. And then this is the scout ship site. If you remember in Man of Steel, the scout ship crashed into the city, and the concept was that the government just kind of couldn't move it, so they just built like this containment center around it. And this is
I love this shot.
Some sort of beautiful 2001 references, and I just feel like it's cool to have Lex just not really that involved with the like he's transcendent, like he gets his own, corporate pass to go into this super restricted area. And then also told in this sort of nonlinear way where you get to see the sort of jump back in time to before this happened and then after. It's kind of a really cool way of doing it. I always enjoy this kind of sort of visual games as well, like where you kind of jump in and out of the reality of the time that you're watching, but it's fun. there he is shaving the fingerprints off of Zod that he's going to use to get into the scout ship. You need Kryptonian fingerprints, I guess.
And they did such a great job at making that Zod body.
The Zod body is so good. It's so real looking. It was scary. Every time we were in the room with it, it'd be laying in the morgue or something, and I would look down at it, and I would just wait for like Shannon to leap up at me or something and scare the shit out. It would have been really cool, actually, if he had come on a plane and like laid down in there and then scared me. That would have been super cool. But I'm just going to check on the sync because I don't know. I have no way of knowing if anyone's watching this or not, so I'm just going to check with Clay and see if he's still in sync. So just 1 second. Here's Scoot, who's again amazing. Did an amazing job. We did a little green screen trick, of course, on his legs to get rid of them. And so we just have the we would just do a clean pass and then they'd paint the legs out, and really, really good job. And he's done a good job of having to do this climbing with no legs, have to do all his arm climbing. It was a really specific shot I drew where the wheelchair rolled back when he grabbed the hand. But and this is Heroes Park. I think we're seeing it for the first time. This kind of park that they built dedicated to Superman's sacrifice. But you can see that sentiments have changed a little bit, and we kind of have a new kind of emotional thing happening where people are starting to feel differently about Superman, and we're starting to get a glimpse of it.
We recreated this Daily Planet.
Yeah, we built this in Detroit. This was like just in an office at the stage where we built this Daily Planet. So, but it was almost exactly as it was in Chicago, where you built the original Daily Planet. So we had to rebuild it in Detroit. Those are the kind of things you have to do in movies. You build an entire thing, you knock it down, and then you build it somewhere else, and it doesn't.
You have to make it look.
So what we had to do out there was we had to do green screen here, of course, because we didn't have the buildings that were in Chicago out the windows, but we were able to get it pretty close. It's a pretty close look. And then this was an incredibly hilarious long take that we did of Clark walking through the entire ferry, but then we just end up using the end of it. But that was Metropolis on that side, and then that's Gotham over there. In our world, the Gotham Metropolis worlds are they're very close to each other. So it's kind of it seemed to be a really cool way of showing like the two worlds. And then this is Clark's supposed to be doing the football story, and instead he's following a different track. I really like this sort of investigative reporter Clark. It's kind of a fun take. Like he has like the morality of a reporter, is such a cool aesthetic for Clark Kent, because he has on one hand his like ability to change things physically. He can do anything, but then he has this other take where he can, like a reporter who won't accept, a lie. He has to go to get to the bottom of it. So it's a really interesting two-prong approach. Here we have Bruce down in the Fight Club looking for some information.
Callum.
Yeah, I talked about him being in.
300.
Yeah. There's Bevan. Bevan's a friend of Wes Collar's. We've known him forever, and try and put him in a movie whenever I get a chance. Plays the bartender slash bookie, I guess, or whatever you'd call it, the money guy. And then this is my hands, of course. I always do the close-ups of the hands.
Yeah, you've done a lot of hands. I said we're going to make a hand reel.
That'd be good. I could get some jobs.
Because I think in
modeling.
every movie, right?
In every movie.
You at least have one or two hands.
I even did Batista's hands in Army just now, so that was fun. Only in a couple shots.
All right, well, I have to go back because I want to make sure the kids are being okay.
Okay.
Because they're up there with Grammy.
Okay, good.
But I just wanted to say hi to everybody and thanks for joining, and just thank you so much for all your outpouring of love and support. We see you all and we really appreciate it. So, thank you so much. It means a lot to us. We love what we do, but when we see that other people really love it too, and how it's touched so many lives, it really makes a big difference. So we appreciate it. So thanks. And it was good to see you. I just wanted to pop in for a little bit, and I'll see you later.
Yay.
Have
Debbie.
fun.
All right, baby. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
So this is sort of the first scene. Also, we did this whole thing with Perry too, where Perry was kind of he's kind of the bridge. He helps us bridge the sort of, 1930s hard-boiled reporter sort of aesthetic and concept, sort of the old America to the new America, where, sort of the morality of the nation has changed, And so Perry sort of represents that transition, and I think he does an amazing job, kind of acting as the sort of captain of this ship that which in modern newspaper is people don't read papers. That's a great. This is a great. This scene I wanted to sort of. There's a great parallel weirdly between Bruce and Lex, and so I've sort of set these. I built these two sets to have a similar vibe to what you see in Bruce's relic. So the two concepts are that this relic of this house, this room, he has been transported to his super modern house that he has had built. But he kept this room exactly like a tomb, like a tomb to his father. Just like Bruce has kept Wayne Manor, though the two parallels are that Bruce has let his be destroyed while Lex has preserved his, It's almost like the opposite. Like Bruce has kind of let his go, but affected him, and Lex has not. We're left with the Bruce that was sort of destroyed by watching his parents die, where here he's still in the process of becoming what the consequence of that world is. We're seeing that manifest itself. Granny's peach tea, which is fun. I think I always liked it, and I love Holly's rendering of that. It's really cool. She's just so good. Holly's always been one of my favorites. One of my favorite actors of all time. Getting to work with her. We wrote this part specifically for her because I wanted to put her in the movie so bad. And this sort of Paradise Lost kind of image, to me is always Totopoulos painted that painting, Patrick did, based on a doodle I had done, and then based on some some painting references that I gave him about what I wanted it to feel like, these kind of, whether it be an etching from the, it's kind of that Gothic 18th century or 17th century or 19th century, Gothic like wood blocks that you see like, or lithographs, that you see, and it's got a really cool. Okay, of course, there's a Superman reference in that painting there. If you look, that's Metropolis. It's very like this dream sequence is very sort of carefully constructed. The idea, wildflowers from the Wayne estate, and like the blood dripping, all of that. I have it in here. This is like shot for shot, and I think this was also one of the first things we shot. Sorry, I'm watching. I got lost watching them. I was waiting for the jump with Ben. And originally, this whole sequence to me was like, Ben is like one of these guys that like he's like self-medicated, sort of psychologically self-medicated as far as his trauma is concerned. He's never given it up. And this is the glass house we built on a small lake in Michigan. It's like one of my favorite sets we've ever built. It's based on the Farnsworth house, the Mies van der Rohe house. It's which is actually remarkably. It was close to Illinois, very close to where the Wayne, where we were, where Wayne, the Kent farm was. Sorry, where the Kent farm was. This actual house was. It's weird. It's a cool parallel, but. Yeah, I like the idea that he, this kind of, the drug of sex and the drug of drugs and the drug of alcohol. These are all things he uses to kind of dull the pain that he sort of lives with. That's why he doesn't really have a relationship, outside of Alfred. He's just had a hard time connecting because of this pain that he has. That he lives with. So he uses relationships instead of as a way to like find humanity in people, he uses them to sort of dull the pain of his own trauma that he deals with. So he's been invited to the party. Of course, this is our first look at the bat suit in its kind of little lair there. And again, Patrick did a really cool job. I think I have a drawing of that. Let me look and see if I have a drawing of the Batcave, because I think it's a cool of the. Oh, look, here's the shot of. Here's the wheelchair shot. Where is it? Oh, right here. See, there's the wheelchair rolling back, and then there's the hands grabbing the thumb. That's my car. It's in this one, I think. That's weird to see that. Let's see. There's the fighting. Sorry, guys. I think this is a cool thing to see. That's Bruce Wayne. Oh yeah, you can see here in my original drawing. Here's the original concept that I did, which was there's kind of that opens and it comes up out of the ground, and then you see him standing before it, and then there's Robin in the background. I always had that concept that from The Dark Knight Returns, that idea of the Robin. Then he goes up the stairs. So that's very similar to the night, day, and night and day. So you hear that song there. This is a good example of like what we were talking about with the sort of wordplay and the sort of concept, the Promethean like Prometheus as a concept, as a, that Lex has this notion that he's this Prometheus bringing knowledge to man, like he's the defender of mankind, like he even against Superman, right? So he has this paradoxical view of Superman being like better, wanting to show that like, a god cannot be both. Well, we'll learn it in a little bit, all good and all powerful. This is always I like those shoes. It's an ad lib, of course. It's really fun. And then we got those, that big server, I can't stay here. And, Alfred's always trying to, he would love it if Bruce found a relationship. That'd be great. This was, where we shot this was at, in Michigan at the, in Michigan, we shot at the university where this was it's a library. No, it's an art gallery. And then we took it over and made it into Lex's house. If you look, I think behind Clark there in that direction is the library, Lex's library where he keeps it. And there goes, of course. There goes Gal. This is fun. It's fun. Oh, that motorcycle in the background there, I gave to Damon at the end of the movie. I don't know if he still has it, but it was he's an amazing friend of mine and collaborator, and I felt like he needed a motorcycle. I really like this sequence. This little exchange is really fun. It's cool also that I like this notion that, you can see just how it would be for Superman that he can hear everything, like he hears that he hears Alfred speaking in his ear, but this is fun. But really fun to see those two going at it. I really. Oh, such a good, yep. And there's Tao. Tao plays Mercy, of course, and she was amazing. She's just such a great actress, and such a great contrast to Lex. I think she's great. I'd love to work with her again. She was really fun, and she does a great job in the movie. I really like it. And then here's just this sort of more the Lemmy scene that there's this fire in Mexico, and he has to get down there and help these people. Can't really be that concerned with a millionaire, playboy who might be doing something weird compared to like the real, like pressing loss of life that Superman has to go deal with. And then, of course, we have Wonder Woman kind of playing her part in that. There's a little reference to her Greek origins, or her, not Greek, but you know what I mean, mythological. See. So then we have this sequence coming up where, of course, she's a good driver. This sequence here where I really like wanted to use this this kind of sort of visual, like imagery to sort of tell the story that Superman, like the dilemma that he faces, where like the more he saves people and the more like miraculous things he does, like he doesn't see himself as anything other than just trying to do the right thing. And he and this sort of superimposing of like this godlike morality over him is this was absolutely reference to like I shared with a lot of guys, like a lot of with Patrick and everybody, like I did a lot of drawings of this stuff, and those things are always all about like Jesus with the cross, sort of trying to find a way to use like sort of religious imagery that we're all familiar with. It's in all of our collective psyches, things we've seen throughout our like lives. This imagery of like even this like Atlas, with the world on his shoulders kind of imagery, like that combined with these images of Christ-like images, even in the context of like I'm rescuing someone, you understand how that could easily become that the lines could get blurred for normal humans. This kind of like this kind of like guy floating up in the sky, like how do you not rely on him for to solve all our problems? And that's not what he wants. That's not his thing. He's just trying to, he's a kid from Kansas, just trying to do the right thing. And we look at him like this, and we ask a lot of him, We do use the word unilaterally quite a bit in the movie, but I think it's appropriate for the concept. It's kind of it's an interesting dilemma, that he faces. All right, watch the movie for a second. I'm gonna hit the head. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Watch this scene. Jenna Malone, my favorite. She's a genius. She's amazing. She was in a movie I made called Sucker Punch, and she did an amazing job, and I wanted to get her in here to do this part in PBS. And she's awesome. Here's Clark starting to really dig into what's up with Batman, and really starting to like understand that Batman is a threat. There's no like he's questioning morality. Really, really cool. Little scene. We shot this in Detroit, real prison in Detroit, and it was the guys were really cool. They let us shoot in there, and it was fun to shoot in a real prison. As far as its textures and reality and stuff, it's really cool. Here we have Lex recruiting Scoot. Got the swear word in there. The fuck do you want? I guess that's how you know it's an R-rated movie. This version is rated R, of course. It could have been more, probably, but and then here's this. Now Scoot's got his wheelchair and he's gone to see Ollie, who is, we're sort of seeing the consequence of like he directly, this is direct. He blames Superman directly, and at CT. I got who plays the prison killer, C.T. Fletcher. Amon Green, who's used to play for the Green Bay Packers. If you know, he's in the Green Bay Packer Hall of Fame. Amazing running back. Yeah, and then. And so this is like a direct. There's a way that Superman can be directly responsible for this. Harry Lennox, who's pretending to be a human being, but does a great job. And so, but has this relationship with Lois, I think that is really, it started in Man of Steel. If you kind of track their relationship, Harry understands that there's a relationship between Lois and Clark, who he understands to be, who he knows, of course, is Superman. But let me just see if I have this is book 2. I have this is a great line, I think, right here. This was Chris and I really love this idea that it's not 1938. This notion that like Superman, as he was created, this world is the world's more complicated, and the morality that Superman's facing in the real world is more complicated than 1938. John Stewart, it's cool. He did this little piece for us. Hang on, let's see if I can find the. It's back here, where we are right now. This was the Swanwick scene. Yeah, here we are. This was this big wonder that we wanted to do. I had that Alexander the Great statue in my office for a long time, and we had it in the gym. I think after we shot this scene, we moved it to the gym in Michigan, to the house gym in Michigan, and we used it just as like this amazing, it looked like we had a giant marble statue in our gym, which was cool. This was Gal and Ben's first real dialogue together, and they did a really cool job. I mean, this was great. This is a fun little scene, and I think Michael did a great job. This dress is really beautiful, made specifically for the movie. He's Sword of Alexander the Great. Here's my, you can see there's like a little insert of the arm grab I didn't do, but you can see that was a big deal. Because I like the idea that she could easily just chuck him aside if she felt like it. But you know, as you know, she doesn't. So, and this scene is Gotham Press. I'm just sorry, I'm looking through my drawings to see if there's anything super interesting here. Oh, here's my doodle of the cop with the bat signal bashing the robber. And it's kind of like this idea that the police and and Batman have some sort of like relationship to each other. So here's a little sequence where we get to do a little decryption of the what Bruce found at Lex's place. And I guess it's boring waiting for it to decrypt, so he fell asleep, maybe? I'm not sure. Or I'm not sure whether it's a byproduct of Flash cracking, on the treadmill, on the cosmic treadmill, whether it creates some sort of rift that allows Batman to see into the future. Could be a combo of those things. Regardless, here we are in this post-apocalyptic world where Darkseid has taken over Earth, and he is creating a version. There's the fire pits and everything of Apocalypse. We have a convoy that's just returned from some sort of mission where they've captured something. We have a big Omega symbol etched into the Earth out there, which is Darkseid's logo. And we have this kind of sort of what I'm trying to do is like there's a culture here where Batman's kind of running the show and defending, I would say, probably what's underneath us. This is the lake, and that the below us is probably the caverns of the Batcave that they've used to turn into their headquarters. And so they've stolen this thing from the old LexCorp, and it is a piece of kryptonite, but no, it's a trap. It's green light. And then you see these are the Superman stormtroopers that have set the trap for Batman, because Batman's the guy that Superman's looking for more than anybody. And so they just like it's not really a prisoner scenario. And Batman doesn't like the idea that his guys are getting killed. So this was a wonder we did. That's all IMAX, by the way. This is IMAX cameras, all shot with IMAX cameras on a big crane. We had built this, cut the side of the truck so that you could boom the camera out. And then we had to reconstruct it with a little CG. And so this is all, a lot of this is CG, all the backgrounds and everything, even some of the guys and soldiers and the fighting, and also all the transitions to get between the takes to make it seamless. These are the parademons, different kinds of parademons too than we see in, we have the normal ones, and then we have the kind of more locust-y looking ones, the sort of scarier ones, which I like. And then the helicopter back there is actually dropping also more Superman super soldiers. So there's this sort of like a relationship that's been, or like a team's been. So not all the like humanity has been turned into parademons. Some are used to infiltrate the last, the human resistance on Earth. And Superman at this point has probably succumbed to the anti-life equation, and he serves the will of Darkseid. And he is also looking for Batman, who he blames for the death of Lois Lane in this alternate world. She was my world, which is reference to "You're my world." He says at the end of the movie, you'll see. I mean, and so it's easy for Superman to kill someone, of course, physically easy. And so this is the Flash running through time, coming back to warn Batman, not to kill Lois Lane, I guess, or that Lois Lane is the key. I'm not exactly sure what he's supposed to do with that knowledge, but at this point, we talked about that if you have to find us. There's this idea. I had this idea that in the future, when they're talking about sending Flash back in time to warn him, that Cyborg, who's would do the calculation to send him back, would say, this is where I have two possibilities of where to send Flash back in time. The numbers point to 2 moments to warn you. And you really want the warning to be closer to the moment where Bruce needs the information. Like, if it's right near the moment where this event might happen, where Lois might get killed, or Bruce isn't able to stop it, or whatever, however that's happening, it would be important if Flash came closer to that moment so that Bruce could understand the reality of it. And so in the future, he says, Bruce says to Cyborg, like, well, what times would you send me back? And he goes, here or here. And he goes, what time right now would you send me back? And he goes, I'm leaning toward this one. And then Bruce says, do the other one, because you already sent me that one and it was too early. So send me the other one. So that's how he's able to send him back again. And he gets him to, because in the new timeline, he goes to a different point in time that's closer to the event that we haven't seen yet in this film. This was a cool set. I really enjoyed it. It had like a lot of cool little details, and even just that big red screen with all the schematics of the Batmobile. I like that Alfred's just working on the Batmobile, and then I like that he also fixes like the Aston Martin too. He's got to keep that 1958 Aston Martin running, and he's got to keep the Batmobile running. I would say that the Aston Martin might be harder to keep running, though I love it more than anything. It's just, trickier. 1%. This is the whole notion. I think it was a quote we took from, I think it's Dick Cheney. I can't remember, where he said if it's even a 1% chance, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. I'd have to look it up. I think Terrio would probably know the answer to that, but it's a cool notion that his morality is so strict that he would believe that to be the case. This is that's what I showed you earlier, my little doodle. I think Jared did this drawing. Jared is a longtime collaborator. Let's see, does it say his name on there? I don't know, but you can see that great Batter Up, which is a nice little political cartoon that's always fun. This was a cool sequence. When we shot it, that baby was crying the whole time, and I felt really bad. And so we had to do it in just a couple takes, except for you see where she kind of puts the baby down out of frame, and then we just added the crying over the top of it, like the baby's just standing down there. He's like a toddler, and she did have him by the hand in the first couple takes, and then we had to let him go to his real mom because he was really upset. So it's hard. See, there he goes. And you can see that I love this line. She's so good. White Portuguese. Probably. Okay, here he is again. It was this moment here where he points up at the thing that ended him up in Bora Bora 5 months later. There you go. See, so it was in reverse. We shot that. I was like, oh, okay, so now you're with us for the rest of the journey. This was a cool sequence. This was a big driving sequence we put together. This included a ton of first and second unit work. But we shot over the course of a bunch of nights in Detroit. It's a cool shot of Batman up on top of that crane. And of course, this is our kryptonite being loaded into the thing. There's I like that the implication is that Batman has a sniper rifle. This is like a Dark Knight Returns image slightly, where he has the sniper rifle. And then this was our beginning our driving sequence. Out of the docks. There's Spider. Here's the Batmobile in action. Boom. What was cool about that shot was when we did the first take of that car getting hit, it went up on top of that container or that little construction office, and it landed directly on top, and it was like this crazy coincidence. It just stayed up on top of the container. And so we were like, oh, that looks crazy. So we had to take it down and do it again, only this time we weakened the container so it would crush it. So it's funny that, or the office. But it was one of those hilarious coincidences where a giant car just landed perfectly on top of a container. This is an example of the Batmobile's armaments and its weapons. I'm sure these guys are fine. They're going to be 100% okay. They're not at all dead. Those guys in the car they're 100% fine. We should have done like an A-team shot of them like on the side of the road, like getting up, like, oh, that hurt, but they're fine. Just for the for the PG-13 of it all. These guys, super high-tech rocket launcher there with the internal camera. But yeah, this was fun. Again, we did this all over the streets of Detroit, racing all around. And it was fun to find these cool streets that allowed us to close them down all night, for nights on end. And then I think this was the sequence. This shot I did remember I did some sort of video intro for that sequence where the explosion went off, the explosion went off behind me and I was saying, hey, welcome to the set. I forget exactly what I said, but that bomb went off and it was supposed to be cool, but I don't know. I think I did blink or flinch, so it wasn't as cool as I wanted it to be. This was always a crazy little sequence here where he goes through the boats and then ends up crashing into that big one. Of course, there was no boats there. It was all CG. The car was skidding around, but no boats. And those were boats, real boats in the background, but not in the forward. And then, so we're about to come face to face with our Superman. I think that was another sequence where I had. Let me see if I can find it here. Really wanted that shot of Superman. Let's see. Batman. Oh, there's that. Yeah, here it comes. Boom. And not in that one. It's iconic here. The truth is that the voice, the Batman voice, was a thing that I always thought was like the best way to do it would be, because I always feel like I just felt like I didn't want to have Ben to like do a voice. You know what I mean? Like put on a voice. Like that always felt to me like it was going to be a little bit weird, you know, like, and also the other Batman had done it. So what it required is some sort of comparison to how the other Batman would do the voice, like did their Batman voice. And I thought that I didn't want to put Ben, this is a Texas switch. So that was Rich getting out of the thing and then Ben coming there. You see, like Ben was waiting. So he walked up and then Ben finished that way. Because the cowl, when you take it off, it like completely F's you up. So we thought we would take it off with, that way you can take it off and come upstairs and still be, you know, in great shape. Then so there's the tracking device. So he knows where he is. He knows where the kryptonite is. The green glow. Again, Tao looking, doing her. There's this relationship here, I think at that point Lex knows that he's got to kill, that Tao's got to die and he's sad about it. That's what that moment is right there. This was a cool sequence we shot again in Detroit under the town hall. Like we shot where we shot was the old town hall where we built all the what do you call it, where the sort of Senate hearing chambers were and all that stuff we did there. And then it was a cool building. And then this was just under the stairs. We found this little set. And like I said, like this sequence right here, we shot just up from it. Yeah. So Senate hearings, which we're really familiar with now. A lot of Senate hearings, a lot of people going to Capitol Hill to testify. So not that unrealistic. And then here is our big piece of kryptonite. I love this little scene we shot with Ma Kent at the Kent farm. Went back to the real Kent farm. We had held it since Man of Steel, so shot this in Illinois. And it was cool. It was cool to go back there, you know, to the real farm again. I don't know if it's there now. It might be gone, but I don't know. Yeah, see, this is Detroit, and I think in the background, we added a bunch of buildings to the scene, deep to be more Gotham City-ish, visual effects wise. But out the window, there's Holly. Look at those arms. My God, she is in good shape. Unbelievable. Genetically gifted human being. It's funny because, like, for me, it's like as this sort of intensifies and we start to get to the trial and sort of get to this, Superman appearing on Capitol Hill, we realize that, his morality, of course he's going to go because he believes in truth, and I think that notion that it's not that he's naive. I think it's that he believes that the truth, it's almost the reporter in him that believes that the truth will be transcendent. And, I think that's why I love Superman so much, because it's always, even in his darkest moments, he has this optimism about humanity, even that we don't have, That sequence we shot in Detroit too. So there was a real bridge there that we added our Washington DC bridge and monuments and all that. So we never, I think we shot some plates in DC, and we scouted it, but we ended up shooting that stuff in Detroit as well. And this is interior. I used to have that painting of Jeffrey Dean in my in the gym. And I think that so this is the old. So the idea was that was the old Wayne Enterprises boardroom, and I think that's shot this in Chicago. Look, just missed him, huh? So again, this was back in Detroit at that courthouse. We brought in these statues and stuff, and we were able to this was an amazing location. It served us really well. We used it for quite some time, and we were there so long. I think we built a small gym in the one of the offices that we would train in. Before we were shooting, we always like to train. The gym we had a really great gym in Detroit that was built at our stage, and we got a lot of workouts in at that gym. But this place was our little, we had a mobile concept for our workouts, and it worked really great. But again, it wasn't as good as the real deal. I never felt like. I remember everyone was doing the ice bucket challenge during this time of the year. For some reason, everyone was doing that ice bucket challenge. Look, there's Eamon. That's his cameo. It's not really a cameo. I guess it is a cameo, but it's pretty. He's pretty. I call it a close-up. People have asked me whether that's my handwriting on the checks that give you guys a chance to sync up. Just this frame right here, Senator Finch gesturing. I'm going to let you use that one to sync up. Okay. I'm going to bring it back. Lovely, 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 lovely. Okay. Okay, all's good. Woo! Sweet. All right, so here we go again. So 3, 2, 1, play. All right. So let me just. Today's a day of truth. I'm sorry. I'm. Okay, so I'm back. I love this Grammy's peach tea concept. It's so, she does it so good. And boom. Yeah, if I could tell you exactly where I am, just so you guys can 1 hour, 30 minutes, 57 seconds. And then, so this shot of Clark inside Superman inside the burning building, like, you know, this idea, like he's literally moved to tears at the notion that he misjudged so badly, you know, what humanity is capable of, and like the pain, how deep the pain is for everyone, you know, like this notion, and that reflects exactly the opposite on Bruce, you know, as like this idea that Superman is responsible for this whole thing. I think that this also, I love this, you know, Superman like doing, like, physically helping everyone, but like emotionally, like he's out of place in this, like he knows how to like do the work of rescuing people and saving them, but it's like the cost is really reflected on him emotionally here, right? It's not black and white or simple, you know, and I think that's the pain really that he's going through right here, you know, and that Lois understands, but that's not. That's not enough, you know. I really like this. We did a bunch of shots of, you know, because like, look, that's where Alfred lives in that trailer. We had this thing like Alfred lives in this old like this old cool trailer, and then Bruce lives here, and it was like just this interesting like rustic concept that Alfred doesn't need a lot of creature comforts. He's able to like live with like not a lot of extra shit. And also that, I mean, look at the glass house is pretty simple, even though, you know, he's a billionaire. He doesn't have a lot of stuff other than everything that's underground. Their whole world is underground. And I think that notion, I really wanted to emphasize as much as I could, this idea that like what they the life, their normal life, like the life that's above ground, is the most minimal, and the life below ground is like where all their energy is and all their attention. And I think that really is visually, like, with the glass house being so simple and Alfred's trailer being so simple, and then what they have underground being so complicated and so massive, that I just think that visually is a great little piece of visual, like, storytelling you really understand. And then this was a cool little, like, I like this little, like, the surveillance camera shots of, like, of Batman taking that guy out. I always thought that was cool. These are like all the gunfire they used to, like, they were trying to stop him, but, like, were unable to. Clearly, he was not slowed down by the security guards, Lex's security guards. But on the other hand, like, look at Lex's reaction to the fact that the kryptonite is stolen. It's clearly part of his plan. Like, he's not at all surprised. We shot this sequence in a little, like, I think it was a residence inn, or like it was a what do you call it? One of those little hotels that literally was right around the street in Detroit from our stages. I think a lot of the crew were staying here. And then we just took over this hotel room, put a green screen outside. We shot this during the day. And we just tented this with a green screen. So this was a real hotel, but we just took control of it. So, but it was interesting that, like, we had to tent this entire sort of side of the hotel to make it look like nighttime, and build that green screen in there. It does. And then the close up of the ass, you'll see that we put there's more, I think was more Kryptonian writing in the S in this version of the suit. We constantly were kind of tweaking the suit as we went. I just like this notion that, again, here's the, like, fingerprints. This was just like how Lex was going to get into the scout ship using Kryptonian DNA and or ID, like that the fact that his skin was now grafted to a Kryptonians, that he would be able to activate the scout ship because it would recognize him as Kryptonian. That was the notion. And then we have this, there's the key still in there from when, I think that's Zod's key. And then he pushes it in and activates that's
analysis reveals ship operating at 37% efficiency.
That's Carla as the ship, which is, like, amazing. I wish my house had Carla's voice, because that would be just the best thing in the world.
Contains knowledge from 100,000 different worlds.
Yeah. He's learning, and meanwhile, Batman is training. This is him getting ready, of course, to fight Superman. It was we shot this training sequence. I think we shot it right after, or right around the time we did the nightmare sequence. I remember we shot this on a Saturday, the workout scene on a Saturday. So there wasn't a lot of people around. But yeah, Ben got in some great shape, and I really appreciated the hard work he did to do that. And then these are just examples of. I think if you look closely on those on those little rocket things, those were it's like I think the chemical sign for what do you call it? For lead. Because that's lead in those it's lead in those what's it called? In those grenades. So this is the file that he's opening up. Our first glimpse at are some of our first glimpses at our guys here, sort of in a scene in a single vision. You know, like I would say that sort of like together for the first time. What would be eventually become the Justice League. You have Diana at a bank in Paris. You have the image that we shot from the Wonder Woman movie. There's the team. We actually shot for the movie before we did this and inserted this into the film. I had shot a placeholder because when we shot the film, when we shot BVS, we hadn't really finished the concept for Wonder Woman yet. And so we had done but the idea that Superman or that Batman was looking at an image from an early photographic image to show that not a painting, but a photograph to prove that it's the same person and that the photograph was 100 years old to show that she hadn't aged. That notion was in the film before we made the Wonder Woman movie. That was kind of the way to start with the Wonder Woman film as a concept, like that she had this group of guys a team of people that she was going after, Ares, in this kind of notion. But anyway, so we had shot in Detroit, Steve Berkman, who shot the image of Wonder Woman from World War I, we had shot that previous with an image from the Crimean War. Originally, it had been the Crimean War because it was one of the early conflicts where photography was used, and I really wanted to really get the longest stretch possible. I think we originally talked about it being even the Civil War as a possibility. Just as far as just in our early conversations, we were like, what would really show the distance. And that idea was really fun to play around with. So we definitely had fun. And then so we shot originally another one of those images in Detroit, and I have it somewhere, but it exists. And then we reshot it with the real actors. But I had Gal in the original photo, but it was the Crimean War, so it was like a much different kind of look. Shot this up in New Mexico. Superman going up the hill to see just to get away, not knowing exactly where he's going. This was supposed to be like Bolivia or someplace like that. I don't know. Patagonia. I don't know exactly where we were supposed to be. So this is Lois. She's about to, start to put use her considerable skill set to put the whole thing together. And then this is this image of Lex with the world in his hand and his plan starting to come to fruition. I really like this notion of this romantic image of him on top of the world, looking out over his domain that he was about to. And then this was, the scene as doctored by Lex to really fuel the fire of this sort of domestic terrorist, and really turn him into what would look like even more on the edge than he was, And I think that we have this whole, she has relationships, of course, with the cops, and she can she gets in and out of, crime scenes and stuff. This is where she puts it together, that it wasn't, he has groceries, fresh food. See. So there's Jenna again putting the thing together for this. Jenna has people in the crime lab that are on her. It's pretty cool. I like the idea that see here, Lois gets the it's together. And then this was a scene, and Chris and I talked a lot about this sequence, in this scene of Clark scene. Is it a memory? Is it a ghost? Is it a conversation with yourself? I think those are all viable versions of this sequence, because it's really, in the end, the Fortress of Solitude has become internalized by Superman into a conceptual, self-imposed solitude, And so what would be normally this insane ice structure has become this simple, incredibly, organic place. And sort of it's more of an idea of self-reflection, where he is experiencing in a sort of very Joseph Campbellian kind of way, this reconnection with, instead of going to talk to his space dad, if you will, he goes to his human father, who he's internalized, to teach him about the thing that he already knows, in this simple story about trying to do the right thing often can be can have tragic result. But in this case, you have to try. You have to, I think the lesson is you do the best you can. And then also that relationship to Martha is my world, kind of an idea, which is reflected in the and then also, which is reflected in this notion that and then you have this sequence here where Bruce goes to his version of seeking the Father. We have this whole thing of the atonement of the Father and the redemption in the eyes of the Father, and I think that this is a Bruce's version. It also parallels the earlier Lex scene that we talked about, where Lex was at the mantelpiece of his father, and Bruce goes to the mantelpiece of his father, just as Clark goes to the mantelpiece of his father, which is a simple relationship to the land. He's a farmer, so he has this relationship to the earth. Everyone has this. The Waynes have this relationship to commerce and industry, and I think that's how each character reflects their internal struggle is sort of through these three different environments, and they kind of all are leading to this. They're all coming to a head here. I always like this. Also, the movie is filled with images of people walking away from camera, in sort of silhouette or in sort of solitude. And I think that's how we're heading them all toward this sort of singular conflict with each other. You know, it's not. It is them alone facing nature, and then and nature representing, on one hand, their enemy or their adversary. You know. This the kidnapping of Martha it's always fun to shoot these little sequences where, you know, we see I think it's Mike Justice is going to jump out and grab her. This is the first look at the armor. And of course inspired by Dark Knight Returns. And then also the spear, of course, is like, you know, the spear that pierced the side of Christ, you know. It's very much very primitive weapon, you know, this notion that you would have to make a weapon that you thrust physically into your enemy is kind of crazy. He could have made a bullet or some kind of projectile out of it, but the spear, I felt, was a much more physical manifestation of him actually physically having to kill Superman. So, and then this is the kidnapping of Lois, which we shot in Chicago, and I think it's in the Daily Planet location, I believe. We shot it in the bottom of the Mies van der Rohe building. Yep. And then this was a pretty crazy sequence because, Mike had to carry Amy right out, and he's pretty strong, so I think and then I think that's a stunt woman who gets thrown into the van, which if you was chucks her in there pretty easily. Amy doesn't like to fly in helicopters, so we tried to keep it to a minimum. So this shot we did on the ground with a green screen out the window, with the shot of LexCorp out there, and the helipad. But it worked out pretty nicely. That's CG environment out there. And then we built this helipad in the parking lot. There was a giant, we built a helipad that you could land on, but it was elevated about, 20 feet off the ground. So we could put green screen all around it, and it allowed us to shoot these shots. And we shot it at night, of course. But all that was a big green screen environment out there, to look over to Gotham across the way. So you can still see the bat signal out there. These shots we did of you'll see coming up the Polaroids. I did those. I shot those on my phone, and then we printed them into a Polaroid. I shot them in pre-production. Diane got the, we tied her up, and I took the pictures of her, and then we printed them and then put them in. And then I think I shot them with the Polaroid camera to make them into Polaroids. And that's how they had that real Polaroid feel to them. And then again, we get an example of Lex doing his sort of his wordplay, intellectual wordplay. There's Superman returning, of course, after the conversation with his father. He's come back, understanding that he has to try, but also that accepts his humanity. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a thing he has to grapple with on how to like. So he's recharged, he's re-energized, but he doesn't understand the checkmate that he's about to walk into. I think that's the. He's mad because of. At first, he's mad now because of what he's the lowest aspect of the threat. I mean, he was, Lois would have died if Superman hadn't caught her. So, like, the intent, Lex's intent, is what Clark is responding to in the sequence. Fists and abominations is implication by implication. Let's see. This means something. Here is the this is the kidnapping of Lois. Let me just see if I can find where we are right now. I mean the kidnapping of Martha. Yeah, so here's this is some of the helicopter with Lex. Here's the those are the Polaroids. Now God bends to my will. See, it's a cool. I just see this line. Now God bends to my will. It's like, I think for Lex is like the perfect working out of this scenario. Like he's basically. Yeah. So again, I feel like, this paradox is, the idea that like Superman now is caught, in this amazing, he can't not act, and that I think is, what it's all about. And by the way, this is always one of my favorite shots because we shot this from a helicopter and came through the real helicopter and then had Superman like through the blades. I thought it was a really nice moment. This is the warehouse, coming up to the warehouse fight. Damon and the guys did a really great job of prevising this fight biz that's coming up. It was the first thing we shot, one of the first things we shot in the movie. I think it took us a week to shoot it, maybe a little more. And so we it was like Ben's, I think, first stuff on the movie. It was, it got us all kind of warmed up. A lot of times when we shoot, we like to start with a big action scene. And I think that, it makes production nervous, because a lot of times when you start with an action scene, you can really easily fall behind, because action sequences are notoriously hard to photograph. But Damon and his guys, and my relationship with Damon and the way we work together and everything, we actually do we do our better work, not better, but faster when we're doing something like this, some kind of big action sequence. And so it gets us warmed up, and it's fun to make those shots immediately, I think. And it's inspiring to everyone to do some cool big Batman sequence. And so we had fun shooting it, but it's coming up. Those are all the Action Comics, Eamon's Action Comics there on the bed, which is a little cameo by the actual comic books. And that's the Action Comics #1. I forget the ones we had. I'd have to ask Eamon again what comics they were, but I think they were I think we had Wonder Woman #1, first appearance of Batman, or Batman #1, Detective Comics #1. We had Action Comics #1, first appearance of Wonder Woman. Or Wonder Woman #1. So it was all those. He literally had those. Those are all on the bed right there. So expensive amount of comic books for reading material. But again, it's just an Easter egg. There's the photo again. Steven did a great job. Steven's an amazing photographer. He also went to school with me. He is a master of the, sort of glass photography, and has always done he's worked on a bunch of movies, always shooting that, as well as he's an amazing artist in his own right. I think he has a book about to come out. So Steven Berkman, you can look him up. He's a really, really inspired and awesome guy. So this was our first, here's Ezra that we shot in and that's Spider as the robber, who's a stuntman that I work with a lot in a lot of my movies, and he's an amazing athlete and actor. So it's great to see him. Always good to see him, and great to have him on set. Here's the Momoa debut shot where he comes with his glowing eyes out of the wreckage of a ship. The concept here was that he had his, to me it was like he had probably trained with his mother's trident a couple times with Valko, but he wasn't keeping it himself. And so Valko kept the trident with him, and as needed, if they were training or he would get it from him, it'd always give it back. But he never took it up as a real mantle. And then here's the creation of Cyborg. You can see it back there. He eventually turns one of the mother boxes on. So he got it to work, and now the mother box is going to rebuild Victor. So that's why he has apocalyptic technology. So he is really substantially impossible to kill, and I mean not impossible to kill, but he has incredible otherworldly technology. You should drink some water. Lord knows you could get dehydrated watching this long motion picture. On the roof, Lois. Oh, go to the bat signal. Here he is waiting. Again, these two parallels. Remember we saw Superman earlier in the sky as God. Now we see him in a storm as this vengeful, sort of wrathful God. It's an interesting parallel. But that's the way Batman sees him. But in truth, Superman has come pleading for Batman to help him, because in reality, he needs to find his mother. I don't know that Bruce 100% understands how strong he is. I like the idea that he miscalculates a little bit the extent in which Superman could wreak havoc on him. These remote firing machine guns aren't really much of a thing. I did also love this as we put this together. You know, this kind of, there is a lot of good Dark Knight Returns reference in here, of course. Let me just see what I've got on, if there's any cool drawings here, that relationship drawings. Here's Aquaman. There's Flash. I feel like this is book 4. It's cool, all CG shot there. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Back here. This is here's some of the that's cool. And then this sequence here, you'll see there's a, this is the lead cloud worked, and now he's breathing the kryptonite gas that he's created, of course, obviously. I like also, if you look at that little detail in the armor where Superman grabbed him. So he has that kind of, we had to pre-design that little crunch where he literally grabbed the armor and squished it. And now we see what's it like to fight a guy at your own. If you're just a man, what's it feel like? You know, that's a cool, boosh. That was a good, that spider on the wire there, doing that under the thing, and then the ride down. Oh. This was all, we had this big set that we built. It was actually two stories. The upper story was the roof, and then you came literally through it, and then this set was built underneath it. So we were able to do it sort of like in continuity, sort of. How long does the kryptonite effects last? I don't know. We always felt like this hole in the wall looked like a shrimp. Or, see that? Or like a... And then I love this concept of the two of them running at each other, and it was a thing we talked about for a long time, that it would be like you really get the physical, and then this is the kryptonite wearing off as it, when you get that ring, ding, almost like a tuning fork striking him, you know, and then down through the ground they go again into this bathroom. All this was based on kind of like architecturally on sort of the we had found this location that was kind of in this kind of rundown in Detroit, that was kind of in this rundown state, and we used a lot of it as reference. This cool old bathroom. I really like the idea that they were in an old, that the fight ends up in this old bathroom, because, you know, and that's, I think that's me doing the opening the gun in the close up there, and then he gets a shot in on the helmet, kind of breaks it, you know, which is also symbolic. Like, I think I like this idea that that Batman's, you know, mask is being removed, you know, revealing his sort of his true nature, you know, like he's literally not, his face is not hidden, you know, anymore. So it's like, this is really his true intent, you know? I have this, there's a Watchmen reference coming up here, which is the Latin version of, you know, who watches the Watchmen, which is this kind of, to go back to this notion that, you know, these guys with the ultimate power, how it was right on the wall right there as they came out. You just see it briefly. You know, who watches, like, who decides what they decide. You know, and I like the idea that that's these two gods sort of battling, that owe it themselves, that owe their morality and their actions are overseen by only themselves. You know, it's a very interesting notion. So then this is kind of, I really like that overhead of like Superman and all the radiators. I really like this idea of this giant pile of radiators, these old rusty radiators for him to land on, because it just created this really cool graphic and this kind of notion that the hardest, you don't even land on the ground, you get to land on these spiky metal things. And then this one image here of flinging Batman, I think Jared had done a painting of like Batman on the end of this, or Superman on the end of this rope, or the end of the grappling hook. And I really liked it. So we were able to kind of figure out how to do it, physically do it, if you force it to. Yeah, which I think sums up sort of a philosophical, like, he's come to this, all the way to this notion that like, he can only live in a world that he forces into a morality that he can justify. But in the end, he's about to discover that, like, you know, it doesn't necessarily, his actions can easily go too far, and that he can become what he observes and that what he hates, you know, which the very thing he's fighting against. In this sequence, like, you know, he's basically turned into like the murderer of his parents in a way, you know, because like he's allowing them to kill Martha. So like, is he responsible for the death of Martha? Has he become basically 100% the thing that he blinded by his hatred, he's become the thing he hates. But and then of course this is very, you know, Dark Knight Returns also, like the foot on the neck and the whole thing. I mean, I still think you could make a Dark Knight Returns movie. I don't think this movie negates a Dark Knight Returns movie, because I think Dark Knight Returns is probably, in my opinion, like the greatest comic book ever written. And I mean, that and Watchmen are, I think, you know, for me, you know, some of the greatest work, you know, graphic fiction ever written. It's just amazing to me. And I think that so by all means, you know, that movie can still be made. That would be fun to do. Someone should do. But I think it would be great. I think it's certainly still to be done. And then, yeah, this is he's come to the crux of his conflict now, and realizes that he's inches away from disaster. Yeah, it's interesting that you know, when you think about, you know, the thing that this is also another Dark Knight Returns, semi-Dark Knight Returns moment. People have argued with me about whether or not Batman in Dark Knight Returns shoots the guy, but I think it's pretty obvious he does. But You tell me. I just see what I see. But this is we're coming up to the warehouse battle. And I think Batman has like been reinvigorated to basically sort of summon all of his skill set to do this rescue, to save Martha. And I think that's an awesome thing when you have Superman or Batman suddenly motivated by like a cleaner version of his morality, which I think allows him to fight harder and be even better. I like that CG shot of the light shining on the old train station. It's cool. And then we did the lighting effect on Lois, and those two came together really nicely. Because it's cool, when you do a shot, you do like a lighting effect on the day of a guy of Lois standing there. You do a lighting effect, and then a year later or 6 months later, you do a CG shot with the light shining in to the other side, and it all matches, and that's really fun to see. Because you don't always get that. The reality of that is that it doesn't really happen immediately. A lot of times we make a movie. These guys are fine too, and none of these guys got hurt. They're 100% fine. They're just we just didn't bother to shoot the shots where they get up, but of course they're fine. They're wearing fire retardant clothing, and so they're 100% fine. But yeah, so it's that idea of like being able to see, when you shoot a normal movie, you actually see the two shots cut together and you understand that they work. It's another thing to make a movie where you shoot one side and then in a year you see the other side and then you see if it works. But that's part of the fun of making these kind of films. You make these kinds of images, where guys are smashing through windows and stuff, and you hope that they get realized kind of how you want it. But I'm trying to see if there's a. Let me just see if there's a. Yeah, here we go. Dunk, 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 dunk. See, this one is where he jumps through the window. It's even better than in the movie because it actually makes the bat shape. When we decided as we did it, it'd be cooler if you made the bat shape. He should not have pulled that grenade. That's his fault. This was just fun to shoot. Look, in the end, when you make a movie like this and you have like the opportunity to have Batman fighting a bunch of thugs in a warehouse, you kind of realize as you're doing it this is just fun to do. This is just what, when you're a kid, you think like, oh, I wonder if I'll ever get to do a Batman fight scene. And I like this, our fighting is like, Batman is pretty good at this. Again, that's the armored cowl, so like you can't really shoot him through his. That's a broken arm. But also like look, he's on his back there. He just got stabbed. But it's that kind of. It's that kind of fighting that you want to see, though, from Batman, I think. Pin a guy to the wall with a knife. This is cool. He throws Wayne into the wall. I like that. Oosh. So all this was great. And Damon and his guys did an amazing job with the choreography of this fight. I really had fun working on that sequence. Just genius. There's Spider again. He's about to get the M60 taken away from him. Of course. And a lot of that fighting was Rich. And Rich Citron, who I've worked with for years, is amazing. He just was in Army and did an amazing job. He's one of the great talents that I've ever worked with, and I really love Rich, and feel very blessed to have him as a friend and as a performer in my films, because half the shit I've done I couldn't do without Rich doing it, and without Damon, of course, and his whole team and all the guys, because they're just so good. We got this idea of the flooded sort of second floor of the train station, because we found this sort of flooded area, and it was like, gave me this notion that it would be easy to make the kind of a difficult thing when you throw the kryptonite. You get this notion that you've really gotten rid of it, throwing it down into the depths of this watery grave, which also, water to me is like this sort of elemental thing to have to submerge yourself into. Rebirth, water, baptism, all those kinds of notions are evoked by water, and I think that it's pretty obvious parallels there. I think that the birth here of Doomsday is a similar thing. I try to use this. We really made this sort of embryotic sac, that Doomsday's growing inside of. We really liked that. I really loved the notion that he busts out of this kind of membrane into. Oh, here's the frame from. It's a very Dark Knight Returns frame. There's Harry pretending to be a human. Let me see. Yeah, let me just skip ahead here and see where we are. Blood of my blood. There's I really like the work they did on Doomsday here. Also, I think he looks. I really think he looks awesome, and he's gonna kill. He would have. He was gonna kill Lex right there, but Superman got in the way. But I really like that shot where he pulls that this sort of embryonic fluid off of himself. I think it's really cool the way he the way how the Sims work there is really awesome. And then I love this notion. I think we did this just as a drawing, as a doodle, as a concept of him seeing himself of Doomsday looking at Superman in a sculpture and then looking at the real Superman. It's kind of like the symbol of the man and this abomination between them, representing kind of, if you will, the public perception of the two different notions, the reality of the man, the symbol of the man, and then this kind of monster in between, which is real. And we had a really fun time with all these big CG shots. There's Commander Ferris doing her thing. Christina, who lives in Pasadena, with right by me, is here for coffee sometimes. Amazing person and gifted actor. Here we are with Diana. She's getting on the plane. She's going to head out. And we did this. We did do this like Turkish Airways gave us the airplane, and we did a little partnership with them. I think we did a series of TV commercials, if you've seen them, where Ben is on a plane, and it's kind of a cute little ad. But they were kind enough to give us that airplane. They flew it to us and parked it in the Chicago at the airport. And then we were able to shoot it, and so it worked out really great to have this airplane. And then we this was the first time kind of we hear Miss Prince. So that's the first time we really hear that Diana Prince. It's kind of a cool way to sort of introduce the name, the comic book name, to the world, And then this is cool. We're gonna. Patrick Wilson is the president, playing the president here. Then we did this little, we built this little sort of nuclear launch bunker, which was fun to build. Built that big door, that was fun to build. And we, had the guys running through it. And then love this through the leaves shot, which is, a cool way to show a nuclear missile launching, to show the sort of, it's always cool to do images where you see this kind of hugely destructive, physically destructive weapon like a ICBM or whatever this is, tactical nuke, and then some sort of incredibly organic thing like leaves, and those two things mixed together, because I think that, it's almost like, it's like a way of describing two incredibly contradictory elements, which is always, it's fun to see. And so then here we have this, image of what would look, I think at first glance, like something, everyone knows Superman was up there, and then into Stryker's Island, and Projectile 2 is would be Superman, and yeah, that's. Oh, it's like, it's like Red Badge of Courage. I don't know if you've read that book, the Civil War book, which, has a lot of symbolic images of like war and nature kind of superimposed over each other, which is kind of like a thing that I think is really an interesting concept. So this was the first boosh that we called it booshing. I know that's a weird. Everything that superheroes do that's like big and powerful, we call booshing. Even like when Wonder Woman goes like this, we call it booshing. So so he booshed there Doomsday, and the notion was that he would charge up and do that, and then that would be that would, because we're going to use it later, of course, when he destroys that's how he would eventually destroy the world, you know. So now he's grown his spikes, you know, he's getting a kind of more of a classic Doomsday look as he goes, as he evolves. And that was a thing that we talked about, you know, wanting to give him that classic Doomsday appearance with the bony shards coming through. It's cool to see the back to this, the spear. So, you know, again, like all these CG shots, you know, DJ and the guys did an amazing job, kind of like, you know, really, to me, like telling this incredibly complex story using these like visual elements that we, of course, can do doodles of and kind of give a notion of what it would be. But it's this, when it's really worked out and you actually see it come, you know, into fruition, that I think it really sort of tells the story in a kind of more immersive way. And it's interesting when you do it, because you've done the drawings, and we've edited a lot of times the drawings into the movie. And so the emotional impact is only as strong as drawing. But it's funny how that evolves as the shots actually come in and you're actually seeing them, you know, rendered in real time, that you start to see like a completely different film, you know, from what you shot. Like these kinds of shots where you're just like, geez, that's cool. And now we have this kind of introduction of Wonder Woman that like, I really had very specifically designed this entrance of Wonder Woman, and that she has this like little, like this power that I think, you know, is slightly unexpected. And then this is them working together sort of by, you know, coincidence. They're all, and it was cool I like the way Wonder Woman kind of sees Superman out of the corner of her eye and just like lets him do his thing, because she understands that like this is the best working out of this. And then this allows even Batman's able to like, you know, lure the monster back to a place where they could fight him without it being like hugely. He's not. That's awesome. Yeah. So like, you know, here's your first shot really of the Trinity, and I really was super like into the notion that the Trinity would like have Wonder Woman in the front, you know, because in a lot of ways of the three of them, she has the most experience with this kind of fighting, this monster. You know, she's the only one who's really seen like full monster, you know, battles. I mean, yeah, Superman has fought Zod, but not like a creature like this, which is cool. But and you can see her confidence is pretty. I always like the idea that she kind of like, even though it's horrible and everything, you see that she kind of digs it in a weird way. Like especially that there's a shot where she loses her shield, and she looks back at Doomsday, and there's this kind of look on her face that like you could tell that she is specifically made to, she loves this, she's more alive. Like that stuff, like it's coming up here. Oh. I remember like, Damon and I were doing a lot of this choreography. We did some of this stuff, in post. We did where we just kind of messed around on a mat and kind of figured out how these guys would be fighting, like Wonder Woman, cutting the leg and all that stuff. I really like that shot where she hits and she has her shield and everything. It's really cool. Cool moment. And then we shot this with Amy underwater. And it was tricky, to film with Amy underwater, but she was a trooper, and she really hung in there and was able to hold her breath and be really under that kind of scary little thing there. And it's not easy to do. It's easy to panic, when you're under a thing and you have to go out to breathe. So she did an amazing job. I mean, not just she's an incredible actor, and she's like one of the most talented people I know, but also physically to be able to do this kind of thing and then pretend like you're running out of air when you are physically running out of air. It's a difficult thing. To really be trapped under that. And then this circles us back to this you are my world notion. The idea for me was always that if Superman, the thing that causes Superman to succumb to the anti-life equation at some point would be the death of Lois, because it would so off-put him that he would so upset him that he would be vulnerable to to the possibility of getting of this anti-life equation taking him over, because he would be so distraught. There's some crosses references, we have a lot of there's a massive, even just in the I'm a big fan of Tiepolo, and I'm a big fan of Renaissance paintings of crucifixion and Jesus descending the cross was a big inspiration for the lowering of him. And again, it's just as a way to sort of reinforce this sort of notion that Superman is some kind of sort of perceived as some sort of savior. See that look right there from Wonder Woman, where she's like, all right, let's do this thing. And then gets the arm. She gets eye beamed, but still. And then this is how we, grew this spiky arm thing, notion. Yeah. I really want to do this in one shot. I didn't want coverage here. And it was because I wanted him to run out of the shot for it to feel real, And then this is all three of them kind of working together really for Batman has the one kryptonite round left that sort of slows him down just enough. Wonder Woman's got him in the lasso, and Superman's trying to fly with that kryptonite, and it's hard. And then if you really want to wake up a mother box, you do it like this. You can sort of hear, watch, there's a wide shot coming up. It's the two shot of It's the two shot of them on top of it. After he stabbed him through, there's a two shot. I think it's this one right here. Nope, you'll cut back to it. Hang on. He Excaliburs. We have this Excalibur moment where they come together. And yes, I haven't even mentioned Excalibur in this whole thing, but of course Excalibur was in the poster. It's a huge influence on this movie. I'm a big John Borman fan, this moment right here. You hear the scream echo in that shot right there of Superman screams as well, right? And that shot is the shot, that sound goes out into the world, echoes across the globe, and would wake up. If there were sleeping mother boxes on Earth, that sound would wake them up. No Kryptonians here. That notion. So then we have this shot of lowering Superman coming up. This is the descending the cross shot where he's lowering him down with the cape, just like you could see how they. And this is like a. And then the Pieta, of course, Michelangelo. But there you can see the crosses and it's pretty straight. I mean, it's not like a super, it's pretty straightforward as far as like reference goes. I mean, it's not really that cryptic. It's pretty on the nose. The fact that this movie came out around Easter is pretty obvious. And by the way, not to say that it's not also, it's not exclusively Christian. It uses Christian metaphor because I think it's universal in its sort of Joseph Campbellian iconographic imagery that we are programmed with, in pop culture, even beyond religion, and so therefore we are all, we all have it in our collective memory banks, these kinds of images. That's my favorite Batman shot in the movie. I love that shot where he ducks under the thing and he's just with the fire behind him, and it's just I just think it's cool. And there's a sort of Pieta and kind of there's the telephone poles and there's a crow back there, and yeah, it's all the stuff. And then here we have basically, of course, the response team is going into the scout ship because they know Lex is in there. He's basically responsible for all this. And in the meantime, he's been communing with Steppenwolf. There's the 3 mother boxes, the lasers, and then he shuts the signal off right before, right as the guys get there. But Lex is now part of the plan, I would say, in some way. He is, and then this is the beginning of Lex taking on the role, his iconic role. All this was shot in IMAX as well, these images, with IMAX cameras and everything. And we really shaved Jesse's head in this sequence. We shot it on camera. And then this was a shot we did again with the big IMAX camera, big dolly and rack focus to the newspaper. Super tricky shot, but this was Chicago streets, just showing the empty streets, everyone in mourning. This was just like a windy thing we shot, but there was some cool wind, so we shot that. Empty barber shops and stuff. We shot on a Sunday morning, so there was no one really around anyway. So we were able to shoot all these different little locations to sort of tell the story of. And then this was our Daily Planet. Everyone's at the memorial. I think there's a J placard somewhere in there. And then these big beautiful Kansas shots of the Kent farm. think when you see this in IMAX, in true IMAX, it's pretty epic. Even these shots of the food are pretty epic. Now, what we did here was like, this was all the crew. There goes Debbie. There's Eamon back there. This was all of us, because we didn't want to like people to know. So we tried to keep it to only the most intimate people of the crew. So there wouldn't be a lot of extras around to blow the ending that Superman died. So this was all pretty much us. And Martha's had to endure now, losing her husband and her son, which is like, pretty intense. It's the same mobile I have, Cash, my son Cash has in his bedroom, that mobile. This was this idea that, he had sent the ring to Martha. I think the plan was like at Thanksgiving or something to ask her, and that way he knew that she wouldn't see it on it, like in his pocket, or find it out, so he could really pop the question in a dramatic way. So, and it's like, I didn't want the ring to be too big, but maybe he made it. I don't know. I didn't think of that till just now. He crushed some coal and made the ring. This funeral procession was based on I like this notion that if you have read into any of the accounts of the Frank Lloyd Wright, when his wife was killed, they did a ceremony that was the way they made it. Like, he built the casket and was very, really interesting. And then, of course, it was JFK was the other one. And it was like you have these two funerals happening at the same time for the same person. One that is the most intimate and sort of the most simple. And then one where, that is the most public and the most full of ritual. Both have ritual, but one publicly facing and one privately facing. Even with the cannons firing, I wanted to because all these things relate. There's the cyclical nature of the movie. Like I said, like the gun, Damon firing or Joe Chill firing the gun, and the shell casings bouncing, with these shell cases bouncing, all of those. If you watch the movie in this kind of cyclical way, you'll see that all those images are kind of wrapped together into, death of Superman almost being this cathartic thing, where the death of the Waynes was this kind of like a thing that broke something, where this is the thing that could heal, even though it's a funeral. Also, the cool thing about the howitzers were I want to use when they fire the howitzers for at a funeral, they fire the howitzers when people, military guys at funerals, but they use these special ones that only have these kind of small. Wow, they don't really. We got the real howitzers, because I thought it would be cooler to have you see the recoil and the giant shell casing. So it was fun to film those because they were so powerful and crazy. So there just goes, there's Clay, that's the whole group. I guess it's Bruce Wayne, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, and so the real Kent Farm is right over there. I mean, in the geography of this environment, the real Kent Farm is, it's there where you can see that, it's right through there behind Lois. That's the actual Kent Farm in the real geography of this location where we filmed. So there happened to be this graveyard right nearby. So you could actually walk from the Kent Farm to this plot in real life. And that was pretty fun. Fun. It was just beautifully, I like this sequence. this was this is so I guess this was this moment where, like, this kind of relationship was being established between Batman and Wonder Woman to kind of make this pact, I guess, to the men are still good, Well, starting to express, I think, what Bruce believes, is this kind of new turn for him, is that he can make it right. He can honor what Superman was all about and make that, and make it, but use Superman's legacy to kind of forge something good again. Yeah. I think that these, by the way, these images in IMAX again, are something to see. I don't know how many people you could actually saw the movie in true film IMAX at in the big rectangle, the big 143 square that it jumps out to. But that was really, it was unbelievable when you saw it. I mean, it was just cool. These images at that size, it's just really cool. So yeah, so then we have this this notion that Lex has communicated with Steppenwolf, and then I think the implication is that from Steppenwolf has told him that he served something greater in Darkseid, So Darkseid, even at this point, he doesn't know that the anti-life equation is here, but he does know that the mother boxes are here and that his planet is ripe for conquest, as Darkseid would naturally be looking for something to take over. But cool Batman intro, I like that. And of course, Lex is not surprised to see him, but scared. In the early days, we did talk about him branding him here, but then I thought, as we evolved the story, because you talk about things early on, like, oh, Batman will go to Lex, and then, like, of course, he's learned from the death of Superman, as we did in the writing and sort of telling of the story, so that, this idea of him, of course, not, is just like a step in the direction of his own humanity, of Batman's humanity, even though he's so mad about, and so, like, filled with rage about what Lex has done, because he blames Lex, of course, as he should, because Lex is the architect. And so, but this notion that he's going to send him to what's it called? To Arkham Asylum is kind of a fun idea, because we get to see. But you're starting to get you're on your way to the iconographic Lex. If you were to see Lex out of prison, of course he would keep his head shaved, Yeah. So, and then there's I think that's a Star Wars reference on his shirt, TK421. Then that's yeah. So we see the painting, right? And then the notion of symbolically that Steppenwolf and or Darkseid are coming for us, and then the dirt fall, of course. At this point, the mother boxes are awake, so. Again, this was all IMAX on the day. So this would have been a big square, these images. I mean, that's the true aspect ratio that we shot them at. 1:4:3, not letterbox like this. And then a little dirt, to me, was just, it's always been symbolic of hope and of lessons learned and that there's more. This was just Misha, Bruce and Misha. Misha now just was first on the last two movies I've done. Amazing. Been with her since forever. She's amazing. Damon, Scott, our sound. Chris Jenkins, Michael. These guys are guys I've been with for all the almost the last since Dawn of the Dead. So a ton of movies. But a great cast, one of the really an honor to work with everybody who worked on the movie, because they all did such an amazing job and really couldn't ask for more from the crew, and really the entire group was amazing. And Larry, who did such a great job shooting the movie. It was a really difficult shoot, long shoot, and Larry was just there constantly, making great shots every day for me, and I couldn't ask for more. Like I say, the entire group did an amazing job. It's funny to go through the movie like this because really just tip of the iceberg on every single scene, and every single setup. Sometimes, sorry if I got off on some tangents, but that's just how it is. Let's see, I got some last images here in the book. Here's some of the, some of the shots from the casket. There's the shell casing, the overheads. Here's the picture going into the casket. There's Lois curled up and with the planet mobile floating above her. That image. Here's some of the funeral procession. There's that view from over the top of the casket with Lois and Martha. Here's if you seek his monument, just going in on everybody there. Here's the devil's painting concept turned around. Here's Lois by herself at the grave. There's Lois dropping the dirt and walking away. And then there's the dirt. And then that's a black frame I drew that says end. So a little bit of that's fun. Yeah, really fun, guys, to go through the movie with you. It was fun to see it. I haven't seen it. We watched it a year ago at the thing, so that was really fun. And but I didn't talk through it. I just watched it. But this is the first time. And Stefan Sonnenfeld, who did the color, who's colored all my movies forever. I'm just looking at the credits, and was really has been a great collaborator with me for. I mean, I did TV commercials with him, from the 90s, the mid 90s till now. So I've known him for a long time, and he's been a great friend and a great ally in all this work. So it was really fun. And, I hope it was fun for you guys. Like I said, it was really fun for me. I really appreciate, everything, that you guys say about the movie, that you continue to love the movie as I do, and really fun, really great. So I guess I'll sign off. You know what? I think they should make a sequel to this movie someday. That would be amazing. That would really be something else. Yeah, I want to know what happens to these guys. I mean, don't they eventually, I don't know, form some